The Mekong River, the largest waterway on the Indochina Peninsula, stretches more than 2,500 miles, originating in the Tibetan Plateau and flowing through countries like Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and China. While this river sustains millions, we're particularly focused on its path through China. Why? Because China has constructed a significant number of dams and hydroelectric plants along the Mekong, some of which are massive. The vast network of dams and hydroelectric plants plays a crucial role in China's energy needs, but as we'll see, it comes with serious consequences for the country's downstream. Let's dive deeper into how these dams are affecting the Mekong and why the situation is drawing alarms. Let's begin by looking at the Xiaowan Dam. This massive structure, located in China's Yunnan Province, is an arched dam completed between 2002 and 2010 at a staggering cost of $3.9 billion. Standing at 960 feet tall, it ranks among the 5 highest dams globally. The Xiaowan Reservoir can hold an astonishing 4 trillion gallons of water, with its hydroelectric capacity of 4,200 megawatts. The dam generates 19 terawatt-hours of electricity annually. This power generation helps China save 6.9 million tons of coal each year, cutting 13.5 million tons of CO2 emissions. Yunnan Province is a vital agricultural region for China. Its warm climate supports the growth of crops like tea, coffee, sugarcane, tobacco, and rice, which can be harvested up to 3 times a year. In fact, by 2020, Yunnan had 10 million acres of farmland dedicated to grain cultivation. The province's fertile lands are crucial to China's food security. However, while the reservoir supports agriculture locally, downstream nations are facing far graver consequences due to the dam's operation. The impact of the Xiaowan Dam's operations became glaringly evident after it began functioning in 2011. The following year, an intense drought affected 4 countries, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos, where nearly 65 million people rely on the Mekong for water and food. The region, heavily dependent on the Mekong, was devastated as water levels dropped, leaving crops unwatered and populations without adequate drinking water. By 2016, Cambodia faced severe water shortages, with 18 out of 25 provinces impacted. In Thailand, 21 people died due to extreme heat, and in Vietnam, nearly 2 million people struggled to find drinking water. The drop in river levels also led to saltwater encroaching into the Mekong Delta, devastating 10% of Vietnam's rice crops. China, however, denied responsibility, claiming that the drought was caused by exceptionally dry weather and not by their dams. While the dispute continued, the question remained, was China's assertion accurate? To answer that, we'll look at more recent data. From 2019 to 2021, a significant lack of rainfall worsened drought conditions for the downstream nations. However, the situation was exacerbated by China's dams holding vast amounts of water. Between China's Xiaowan and Huazhou dams, more than 50% of the Mekong's active water reserves were stored. In 2020, the driest year on record, these dams could have alleviated some of the drought's effects by releasing water during the rainy season, but they chose not to. Instead, China prioritized its own needs. In 2019, the Stimson Center, a Washington-based think tank, published a report pointing to China's dams as a primary cause of the drought affecting the Mekong's downstream countries. The report, based on satellite imagery from the company Eyes on Earth, painted a concerning picture. These infrared images clearly demonstrated the drought's progression, revealing that while China's part of the river was well maintained, countries downstream faced severe hardship. In 2019, the Mekong's flow dropped to its lowest levels in a century, making it the worst year for the lower Mekong basin. The consequences were devastating. Failed harvests, declining fish stocks, critical as fish provide a primary protein source for millions, and increased social unrest. Local authorities in the affected countries declared states of emergency, as the damage from the drought was palpable. So, what was happening in China? While the rest of the Mekong River basin suffered, China's dams remained full, and the country's climate was comparatively wetter due to higher than usual rainfall and snowmelt. Yet, most of this water went directly into China's reservoirs, further depleting the flow for downstream nations. This strategy of hoarding water has sparked significant concerns about China's control over the river. In essence, China's dams are disrupting the entire Mekong ecosystem, impacting not only agriculture but also the environment and local communities. For years, China has avoided joining international conventions or agreements that would limit its authority over the Mekong's water resources. Despite the growing dissatisfaction of downstream nations, China maintains that its actions are justified, citing the need for energy production and regional development. In fact, China has consistently rejected claims that their dams are to blame for the diminished flow, including the most recent rebuttal from the Global Times, which defends the dams as crucial, especially during the rainy season. However, other independent studies, such as those conducted by the University of Colorado at Boulder, support the idea that large dams significantly affect regional climates and water flow patterns. In North America, for instance, research spanning over 30 years has shown that the construction of major dams has a direct impact on precipitation patterns and water availability. It's safe to say that the negative effects of dams on the environment are becoming increasingly clear, and China's refusal to acknowledge them is becoming harder to justify. But what happens when China decides to release water from its dams? It's not always the case that water is held back. In fact, sometimes the flow of water from the Mekong's dams increases sharply. During periods of peak electricity demand, China releases stored water, raising the water levels of the river. Even during droughts, a study that analyzed nearly 100 years of hydrological data found that, in recent years, the water levels on the Laos-Cambodia border have risen by 3 to 5 feet during droughts. This artificial increase in water flow has detrimental effects on local ecosystems, especially when it disrupts the natural water cycle. For instance, the trees that typically grow along the riverbanks, which are adapted to seasonal flooding, have been negatively impacted. These trees rely on the fluctuation in water levels for survival, with low water levels allowing new saplings to take root. However, when the water level stays high for too long, it disrupts the growth cycle, causing many trees to die. The same problem extends to the fish, birds, and other wildlife that depend on the forests along the river. While China's actions are certainly damaging, they are not the only contributing factor to the Mekong's problems. Laos, for example, has been rapidly expanding its own hydroelectric industry, building over 60 dams on the Mekong's tributaries by 2016. One of the most significant projects, the Xiaowan Dam, has been the subject of extensive controversy. Environmentalists argue that the dam could severely disrupt fish migration and affect ecosystems downstream. Despite claims from developers that they've taken measures to mitigate the impact, such as installing fish ladders and sediment gates, the river has still suffered. In some areas, the once brown Mekong River has turned an unnatural bright blue, signaling the loss of vital sediment, something known as hungry water, which causes erosion and further environmental damage. The Mekong isn't the only river where hydroelectric projects are causing conflict. A similar scenario is unfolding in Africa, where Ethiopia has built the Grand Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile. This has sparked a heated dispute with Egypt, which heavily relies on the Nile's waters. Egypt claims that the dam threatens its water security, while Ethiopia argues that the project is crucial for its development and will provide electricity to millions. The situation mirrors the Mekong, where one nation's dam-building ambitions are jeopardizing the future of its neighbors. The situation with the Mekong River presents a complex and multifaceted issue. While hydroelectric power is often seen as a clean energy alternative, the environmental and social costs of large dams cannot be ignored. China's dominance over the Mekong's water resources has sparked tensions with its neighbors, and the long-term consequences of these actions are becoming more evident with each passing year. Until there is greater cooperation and regulation regarding the construction of hydroelectric plants, the future of the Mekong and similar rivers around the world remains uncertain. The need for balanced, sustainable management of these vital water resources has never been more pressing.